I'd like to get us started off with a story from a couple of weeks back. The other day I was at a McDonald's with a friend of mine from my old high school. And this kid, he was always a sort of techie, computer-oriented kind of guy. So back when we were in person, I'd always find him working on some new project in the computer science labs after school. Now, we were just shooting the breeze over our milkshakes, and I was asking those questions you'd ask to catch up with really any other guy nowadays. How's this year been for you? I prodded him. And he responds, you know, things have been pretty tough at school because of you-know-what. And I go, tell me about it. Class has just been terrible because of everything being online and all that. Well, he begins, my classes have been pretty fine at least. It's just all the clubs that we have to join. One day I have to catch up with Psychology Club. The next day I have to write a speech for Model United Nations. The day after that I have to do A, B, and C for X, Y, and Z clubs. And I stop him there. I didn't know you were in all that stuff, I tell him. I always thought you were more of a computer science kind of guy. And he replies, I don't care about any of this. You know how it is. It's all for college. You don't care about any of it? I ask him. Nope. As soon as I get to UT Austin and I start studying computer science, I'm dropping every last bit of it. And that got me thinking, because I've had a similar train of thought myself. Whenever some new club opportunity pops up or some new leadership request arises, I sometimes have to stop myself from thinking, well, will this look good to colleges? And as I begin the college application process myself, I'm looking back at my high school career, and I'm asking, is it worth it to deny who you are in an effort to become more like who you think you should be? Is it right to throw away your passions so that you can tick off a couple more checkboxes on a list? Is it true to yourself when you say that you're someone whom you are not? And quite frankly, I think the answer to that is no. Now, each person has their own unique set of desires. We all want different things, we all set different goals, and we all aspire to be different people. But underscoring those desires is a universal framework of needs. In 1943, Abraham Maslow recognized this and argued that everyone's driven by a common hierarchy of needs. The lower levels of that hierarchy represent more basic material needs, while the upper levels of that hierarchy represent more abstract needs related to personal development and aspiration. At the bottom of the hierarchy are our physiological needs. Those needs related to food, water, warmth, sleep. And above that physiological layer comes our safety needs. In other words, our need to feel physically safe and secure wherever we are. Now, above those two basic sets of needs, things get interesting. On top of safety are our needs related to belonging and love, or our desire for human connection. And above that comes our esteem needs, our drive to feel like we've accomplished something with our lives. And at the very top of that whole hierarchy, once all said and done, our final need is our need for self-actualization. We want to know that we've accomplished our full potential as human beings. Now let's take a step back. Let's look back at that hierarchy for a second. Beyond the basic needs, every single level is about your own development as a person. Our belonging and love needs, they're not just about getting approval from as many people as possible. No, they're about developing quality relationships with those that we care about. Our esteem needs, they're not about hitting arbitrary milestones or filling out lines on a resume. They're about being proud of who we are. And our self-actualization needs at the very top, they're about being the best person we can be. A lot of folks our age, they do the things they do so that they can just get into some top-tier college and start shaping who they are in the future. But I think we sometimes forget the choices we make now in high school. How we choose to lead, how we choose to explore, and how we choose to interact. They're also going to shape who we are as adults in the future. Now, our lives are driven by these needs, but along the way, many of us are going to face internal conflicts and struggles. Sure, we'll have a tough time with some of our classes. We might face minor setbacks. But we'll also have to ask deeper questions about who we are, what we're here for, and what place we have in the world. In the late 20th century, Erickson developed his theory of psychosocial development. Now, in this theory, every person goes through several stages in their life, each one having an existential question. For an infant at the beginning of his life, learning about the world for the first time, that question is, can I trust the world? For a young adult seeking romance, that question is, can I find love? And for an older person looking back on their life, that question is, have I lived a fulfilling life? Erickson identified the adolescent stage of life as the time for us to solidify our identity. In this stage, we look to the future and we ask ourselves, who am I? And who can I be? If we can find an answer to these questions, then we become secure in our identities. But if we can't find an answer, we fall into identity crisis. According to Erickson, if an adolescent lets their future be defined by external forces like societal expectations or parental wishes, they'll effectively put an end to the search for identity without finding an actual identity. Instead, he argues, adolescents should be free to explore their passions with those they care about, so that they can develop a healthy sense of who they are and what they stand for. Many of us have one more year left. One more year of high school. One more year before we become adults. One more year to figure things out before we go to college. And while we do have our responsibilities to take care of, let's take care not to drown in them. Instead, I figure that we should take more time out of our lives to hang out with our friends and do the fun things that get us excited. After all, it's those times that'll allow us to answer the defining questions of our futures. Who are we? What are we here for? And what's next for us? I'm Kwee-Bintoro. Thanks for listening.